Today we do our Major League Baseball draft preview with Tigers minor league report.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, July 11th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your purchase. We have the current host of Locked On Tigers. We have the OG host of Locked On Tigers in Chris Brown. And we have Raj over at Tigers Minor League Report. This is what, the second or third year we've had you guys on for draft preview. I feel like we need to do this like way more often, which is totally my fault, my show. So you can blame me. But we obviously go a few years back now, been on your show plenty of times. We'll have the live stream this Sunday.
Yeah.
You want to watch during the draft. I was trying to think, I don't even know how many years in a row I've done the live stream with you at this point.
Five.
Was it five?
Yeah, 5 years. You started doing it, I believe, in 2021. It was it the Cole Keefe draft? Was it the Cole Keefe draft, maybe?
2020.
So I'm pretty sure, because that was Torkelson, right? So I'm pretty sure I was out of town when they took Torkelson. So 21 would have probably been
the Job draft.
Yeah, the Job draft probably would have been my first.
And then the Young draft, we were actually in studio together.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yes,
we were in studio.
We were in studio. Yeah, I was sitting in the chair.
The chair,
from the
give him the chair.
Yeah, the Maslow chair. Yeah.
Right. But glad to get you guys on any chance we can, obviously. And honestly, like, just want to kind of riff about the MLB draft that is this Sunday at 6 is the start time. This is an interesting position the Tigers, I think, fans have not been in a long time, where they're not picking at the top. Like, it's just been so long since the Tigers have been outside of the top, half, even, we'll say, of the draft. Even when you go back to, like 2015, 16, right? You talk about like the Matt Manning years, like Alex Faedo, and what was that, 17, like, or other way. Well, either way. But like you go back that far, right? Like those are still 15 was obviously a bleep show, but like those are still like decent teams and whatever. This is the first year that it's like, okay, you're not going to get like the perennial, one of the big names you can just get like super excited about right away. And we've also seen that this regime in the Scott Harris era is extremely pro prep, right? They are just a point that they drive home like no other. I remember the first draft that the Tigers had under his watch. It was like double-digit prep players, and they hadn't done that like ever. Like the last 8 drafts combined had 11 prep players. So I kind of just want your guys' feel before we get into individual names on just like how you think the class is going to look. Are we going to expect more prep players like we have? Do you think that it's going to be maybe more bat heavy, more arm heavy, etc.? Does picking in the 20s change the outlook of everything else? Raj, we'll start with you.
I think that it does change the outlook a little bit because it allows them to, the guys they've had really, and this is something that's been coming up on every draft, the relationships they've had with their scouts, and their scouts have gone out and had built out these rapport with these various players. And so I think they're going to go focus on pitching because, talking to Garco here and there, they've had to go to the independent leagues quite a bit, the Mexican leagues, to get pitchers as of recently. And I know you don't draft for need. However, when Owen Hall, Ethan Shadowbaum have been, and then you have Paul Wilson down, you have to kind of look at it and go, okay, these guys are probably a year or two from coming back and being in full force. So you can't go to the indie leagues for so long. And I think there's some interesting arms in this draft that I think put under the Tigers process. Now there's it's like an assembly line as cliche as that is for Detroit, it's true. And I think that there's enough arms to work with there where they can still pick their prep bats or pick up a established, even a good college hitter in there. There's a few in here in the draft, and go pitching heavy, because I think they just, we look across the board, we've seen some really good things down in Lakeland, for example, but it's like 3 or 4 inning starts. We're not seeing like that, like big dog starter right now. And I think that the system lacks that on the lower levels, in my opinion.
Chris?
Yeah, and I actually think that they're probably going to stick to what they've been doing the last 2 drafts. Part of that is the shape of this year's draft, where it's generally considered a below average overall crop, and that's usually judged by the amount of college position talent, and there just isn't much at all in this year's class. It's an unusually deep high school infield class, and that's right up the Tigers' alley.
Right.
And I think, to a certain extent, I agree with this, is that you can find pitching anywhere. I mean, Raj talked about it. They're going to find these guys in the Mexican League and stuff like that. They're not creating aces or anything like that. But look at who the top pitching prospects in the system are right now. You got, I think Troy Melton was a 4th rounder. Ham was a 5th rounder.
Yeah, Ham was, yeah.
Jake Miller was an 8th rounder. Joseph Montalvo, they didn't draft him, but I think he was in the 20th round or something like that. So, with the advances they've made in kind of pitch development and pitcher development, not just the Tigers, but everybody, you could find guys later in the draft, I think. And it's much harder to find good hitters later in the draft. And so I think it wouldn't shock me at all if they go prep hitter. They have pick 24, 34, and 62 are their first 3 picks. And it wouldn't shock me at all if they go prep hitter with those first 2.
Well, and even, Raj, you bring up the pitching depth. I feel like that assembly line analogy is a really good one, because even the guys that, like, I'm so excited for Wilson to kind of, like, Paul Wilson to just have like kind of the leash taken off, right? There's such good stuff there. Obviously he's very young and very raw at the present moment, but like, because that's a prep arm, right? And like, so those guys, once they maybe start trickling up into the higher level of the minor leagues, then, the next wave, or whatever you want to say, of prep arms that they take this year and next year will kind of filter in down below, similar to what we're seeing kind of happen in front of our eyes with the bats, I guess, to be fair.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, please go.
No, I was just going to say, I think there's a couple arms in this draft that they can draft in the 3rd and 4th round that can move through the system quickly. I think that you can't ignore the prep. As Chris mentioned, he's absolutely right. There's a couple bats that are really stand out in the 24 and 34. But I think with the emphasis on so much of the depth on bats across the board, I think you can get a really good pitcher in the 3rd or 4th round that can move up pretty quickly, because they can get a swing and miss guy for their bullpen, because I think they might even think, they might think 3D tests here and maybe think about a guy who can move through the system now quickly.
Sure.
To help them out with and Chris has mentioned this when people ask us about, when they're moving up, they're using the draft to backfill the rosters. You don't think there's going to be one guy in there that's going to go to West Michigan right away? I mean, there's a possibility for that. I don't know who that would be, but I just think that if you look at the way they're structuring everything right now, I just think that we might be surprised. I just think that the Tigers I think they like the allure of mystery that they're doing right now, but I think there's just something about Scott Harris where he's like, I'm going to be the smartest guy in the room, and I know it, and this is what I'm going to do.
Well, I think Harris loves acquiring talent. I think he absolutely, like, if you caught him in like a moment of honesty, he might tell you that he's happier that the minor leagues are so deep and they're winning so many games than the big leagues. Maybe not, but he loves this. He loves finding these players and building a strong farm system. And it's not just getting the prospects; it's finding the depth and keeping guys in AAA and all that stuff. So I really do think they're just going to go for the guys they think are the most talented up top. And then I do think you always need pitching. And I do think that they're going to go for some more pitching this year, maybe than usual, maybe 13 pitchers and 7 position players or whatever, just because they've had so many injuries and you need bodies. But again, I think they're going to go after guys that they like, no matter. And if there's a hitter that they like in the 8th round, they'll take him. So I don't know. I trust them to add some pretty good talent. There's some guys who were under the radar last year that look like really interesting prospects now.
I mean, you can even start with, if there's a redraft, does Rayner make it to the Tigers pick?
I don't think so. I
don't
wouldn't
think so either.
I don't think the Nats are taking Seaver King.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
So,
all right, well, let's get into some of these specific names this year. There's a lot of, as Chris, you mentioned, there's a lot of prep players this year. So let's get into some of the individuals that we could see the Tigers land. We will do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to y'all about our friends over at Supply House. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get any job done right. You can get the supplies you need from the site that is made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, doesn't matter. It is the reliable way to order products online, delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with the order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service. You'll always talk to a real person every time. And for trade pros that are looking for that extra edge, well, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. So join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. You can use promo code SH5 for 5% off of your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Got the Tigers minor league report guys in here talking about the 2025 Major League Baseball draft. So I think we are all kind of in lockstep that this, prep over everything kind of mentality is not really going anywhere. And in this draft, that is a good thing to have a later pick on, because as Chris mentioned, this is a draft that has a lot of prep talent in it. Is there anyone, actually, you know what? We're going to start with a specific guy, because every single mock draft on the planet seems to have Slater DeBruin going to the Detroit Tigers at 24. He's a left-handed hitting outfielder. The lefty thing is kind of like a joke at this point, almost, that the Tigers are just obsessed with taking left-handed hitters. Is there any, I mean, this is like a super generic, is there any smoke to it? Like, do you think whatever, but is this a player that you would be excited if the Tigers added come Sunday?
You go ahead, Chris.
oh yeah, I mean, I would. He strikes me. I would prefer him to be their second pick, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
And what happens is when certain players do well, other players get compared to them, and so you see Slater DeBruin. He's a smaller left-handed hitter from the Pacific Northwest. So everybody says, "Oh, it's Corbin Carroll again,"
Right.
Which is not fair to anybody. And he's known for kind of putting the bat in the ball, working counts, more of like a leadoff hitter profile. He's got a little bit of thump. He's one of the younger outfielders in the class too. But it's what you're getting with him is probably that top of the order player with plus speed and potential above average defense and center. That would be great. Yeah, I just he strikes me as a guy who is probably not going to grow into much impact, but it's tough to know right now, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, as far as he goes, I'm with Chris. If he was at 34, okay, but there's a couple other guys in this draft that are ahead of him or in that same realm that I'm much more excited about, because for me, I would love the Tigers to, for once and for all, get a right-handed third baseman with power. I don't think that's too much to ask, gentlemen. I mean, I think that,
brother, you're preaching to the choir here. I will say that my favorite prospect in that range, obviously, like I'm, excluding like the guys that are definitely going to go, top 10, top 12 range. But in that range, I absolutely adore Josh Hammond for that reason. Like I don't know if the glove is necessarily going to translate. I'm not sure. I mean, there's even a risk with the bat is like very far from a sure thing, but he hits ropes. Like he absolutely laces the baseball and is a third baseman. And like for me, 18 years old, he's, over 200 pounds, 6'1". Like that's a big frame that hopefully you assume can kind of hold that power as he develops through. I I adore him. And I like fully understand that there's a big risk involved with that, because if he doesn't do the one thing, then where's the value going to come from? But I am right there with you. And again, to Chris's point that I keep reiterating, there's a lot of prep infielders in this draft that you can kind of get your profile, I guess I'll say, with.
Yeah, like Gavin Finn's another one too, out of California,
sure.
and it also fits that Tiger motif. The only thing that we have established a little bit is that they do have their certain areas. California is becoming one of them. They've become like over the last 5-6 years, upper state New York, the Carolinas, like we've established some sort of pattern. The reason why I like Finn too is because he's 6'3", he's right-handed, and he can grow. He can, and if he doesn't work out at third, you have a corner outfielder position or even a possible first baseman down the line. But with the pedigree he's into, in California being a very high, the area that he plays in,
sure.
I think that plays a part with it. So Mark Connor has a history of that too, of scouting guys in California. But as far as like another guy that stands out to me as short that I really would have liked them to draft is either Malik Houston, another guy too, is just like size. And I know there's originally there was smoke for Quentin Young, and Young too, same thing. He excites me a lot too, because he's just like that James Wood type. Because when I saw James Wood at Double-A, and then when I saw him against the Nationals, like that guy he's 22 years old and he put up almost 5 WAR already. It's just ridiculous. I'm like, I love for the Tigers to have that kind of like massive, like Briseño right now in Erie is like the closest thing we have to that. But this massive like threat. Briseño's left-handed, but you know what I mean? Like just a power bat that can right-handed power bat.
Yeah, I mean, Young is one of like he's another guy that would be kind of fun with that second pick or maybe even a third pick, because he's just such a huge boomer bust prospect. It's not just like this crazy raw power. He's also got a super strong arm and is way too athletic for somebody that size. The questions are just like, is he going to hit at all?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the one guy we haven't mentioned yet, and he's another name that I see often coming up for the Tigers, is Kason Cunningham, who is he gets compared to Kevin McGonigal a lot. As some people think he's the best pure hitter in the high school crop. He's an undersized guy who can play shortstop, but probably going to be second baseman. He's got above average speed and just a long track record of hitting. And, heading into this draft process, he was ranked in the top 10 on a lot of lists. And he just, as the mocks go on and on, the scuttlebutt is that he's falling for some reason. Maybe it's concerns about lack of power. Same reason that McGonigal didn't go higher. I don't know. But sounds like there's a real chance he could be there for the Tigers at 24. And I do feel like that they would jump at that opportunity to get him.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think that's one where if he is available and on the board, that's somebody that the Tigers would run to the podium.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that at all.
And I will say this, and there are fun people on Twitter you can follow, right? And there's a guy named Azad Earl. It's at Data Prospects, and he actually has kind of a matrix from the summer showcase circuit for high school hitters. A matrix. It's got in zone contact rate on the bottom right and a hard hit rate on the vertical axis. And Josh Hammond is one of the best. So is Gavin Feen. But number one with like a bullet is Jaden Fosski, who
sure.
Who he kind of was a catcher a lot, and I think teams would like him to catch, but he doesn't seem like he wants to catch. He's an outfielder now, and he was a plus athlete for a catcher, just kind of an average athlete for an outfielder. But according to this thing, he's got over like a 91% in zone contact, which is better than everybody but JoJo Parker and Kason Cunningham, and a 36% hard hit rate, which is 7% higher than anybody else. So that would be kind of like a monster combination. And you don't see him in mocks coming off the board before like the 35th pick.
Dude,
so
yeah. He's a big like second round mock guy too, which would be I mean
I think he's committed to LSU. You may have to give him some extra money. So I don't know, maybe he'd be a fun option at 34.
Well, and that's the other thing, I'm glad you brought up the slot value there. Is there anything that really changes in terms of, not signability necessarily, because that's kind of each player to each their own, but like, is there anything that changes with the draft strategy, drafting this much later? Because like when Clark, that was the big thing. It was like, oh, they were able to go like a little bit under slot on Clark, and then they were able to get McGonigal and go over whatever. Is that picking 24 is a lot different. Like the gap of going under slot or whatever, or taking a prep there, you might not go under slot at all. Like, is there something to like the strategy of money management that changes a little bit drafting this far back?
Chris is more the money expert on this, but I think I personally think this. I think this would allow them to say there's a guy they really believe in, like a prep player who is like committed to a school like LSU, or a school that like we've seen this now recently where LSU has thrown money. They threw money at the Tampa pitcher last year.
Right.
And so I think what might happen is let's say there's a guy, they're like, you know what, this guy is going to be an impact. But then there's a school out there that's like going, hey, we're gonna pay you. I think the Tigers might use that extra money and use that to kind of say, no, you're coming with us. And so that could be the case. I think that the Tigers they were signing guys last year who we thought that when they drafted them, they wouldn't sign, but they were the pitcher in Kentucky who ended up having surgery.
Swanson.
He's
from Washington.
Washington. I don't know why I thought Kentucky. That gentleman right there, like that was a guy who like maybe he was committed to Kentucky. Anyway, but
that's probably right.
Yeah, there's like a long shot for him to sign, and he signed for like just a bare minimum. So I think the Tigers making inroads with this. Like again, I mentioned this earlier about the scouting and having these relationships. I think what they're telling him, like even a guy like Jude Warwick, for example. I mean,
sure.
he was signed, and the Tigers were scouting him really hard. So maybe there's somebody out there that are like, hey, if we have extra money, let's wait and let's use it on this guy.
Yeah, I mean, so the Tigers picking lower, they don't have nearly as much money as they've had in the past to play around with, which, it gives you more creativity in what you could do. But having those 2 picks in the top 35 does give them a little bit of room to play around with. And to Roger's point with like Jude Warwick and stuff, and I often mention this because our buddy Brandon Day kind of came up with this phrase. He said that they've gotten better at scouting and scouring. And the scouring part is finding out which of these kids that they like will sign for less money.
Right.
And it's not even like that they're cheaping out. It's like we like this guy and nobody else seems to be on him in this range. So we'll get him for more than other people are offering. And the comparison I come back to is when Mark Connor was running the drafts in San Diego in 2021, the year the Tigers took Jackson Jobe. Jackson Merrill was this late rising infielder out of Baltimore or the Maryland area who wasn't really on the showcase circuit, but he was getting a lot of steam late in the draft process. And people thought he'd be like a second rounder. The Padres took him in the first round at pick 27 and gave him an underslot deal. So they took him higher than other people thought he was going to go. And then they used the savings on that deal to go get James Wood at pick 62. So you could see the Tigers do something like that, where there's a guy that seems more like a second rounder and they take him for less money at 24 and then save some of that money and go get a higher profile player later, maybe with a little bit more risk. That's the Quentin Young, Josh Owens strategy is the one I like. Josh Owens is a guy compared to Jackson Merrill in this draft. That's probably a strained comparison. Again, it's not fair, but he's the same size, kind of a late riser, athletic, probably an infielder now, but probably will move to the outfield, and he'd be a fun pick for me. I'd take him at 24 just for the hell of it,
right.
But it's it's not my job on the line.
You take a guy that's projected to go later in the first and hope that a guy that was projected to go in the first falls to you in the second, and you play the political side of slot money and signing bonuses and whatever. Let's talk about a few more players. I do want to ask if there's any collegiate players to maybe keep an eye on. I feel like it's almost not fair to just go like strictly prep, but if there is a front office that it is fair to do that with, I feel like it's probably ours. So we will do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to y'all about our friends over at Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it is literally game day and suddenly you realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without all of the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying tickets. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for exciting, upcoming Major League Baseball games. Tigers at home this weekend before the All-Star break can be included in that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, everybody. We are back. Third and final segment here of Locked On Tigers. Want to ask about if there is any, and if the answer is none, then that's honestly fair. Is there any collegiate players that you could see? Obviously, at some point they will take collegiate players, later in the draft. At the top, is there any chance in heck that the Tigers with their first round pick take a collegiate player? And do you have any idea of who maybe is worth keeping an eye out?
Honestly, it would probably be Jace Laviette.
Sure.
The kid out of
he falls there for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he's one of those guys with a lot of power. I think he'd be a very solid outfielder, a guy that could quickly.
And he was top 5 projected at one point this season, and kind of fell.
So if he falls to 24, just the raw power alone, I think is intriguing. That would be the only guy I can think of.
Raj mentioned Merrick Houston earlier, the shortstop from Wake Forest, he's more of a glove first guy, but they think he also puts the bat on the ball at a good rate. And he kind of fits the profile of what the Tigers like, is this contact oriented up the middle athlete. And maybe you can tease a little bit more power out there. I don't know if he'll be available, but I could see if they have their heart set on Casey Cunningham and Slater DeBruin or something like that, and they're both gone and Houston is there. Sure. If Gage Wood is still on the board, the pitcher from Arkansas who threw a 19 strikeout no-hitter in the College World Series. He was rising up draft boards before that, and that just kind of rocketed him through. There's some questions about his medical, and that's tough for anybody on the outside to know. But that's a pretty dynamic. Yeah, that's a pretty dynamic arm that they could theoretically take there in that range. There's some other interesting college players like Ethan Conrad, another Wake Forest kid. He was an outfielder, spent his first 2 years in Marist. And then he had a really good Cape Cod league and transferred to Wake Forest and was off to a really good start there before he hurt his shoulder. And he's relatively young for a college player. I think he just turned 21, but he's kind of could have 5 above average tools down the road. The questions there are like, how injured is he? And he's also kind of one of those guys who makes contact too easily. Sure. So he chases a little bit, but he would be an interesting one. Brandon Compton was another outfielder who kind of blew up in the combine, as it were. People knew he had power. He's another guy who had a good Cape Cod league, left-handed hitter, and he put up the highest exit velocities of anybody at the combine. It was like 116 consistently. It was insane. This is batting practice, right? So this is not getting 90 miles an hour plus. Right. This is like 60 mile an hour pitches. So, and he's a guy who can run a little bit, but he's kind of a left fielder only. It doesn't necessarily strike me as their profile. The one guy I mentioned in my article about outfielders the other day is Charles Davalon. He was another Arkansas kid. He actually is from Canada originally and started his career in Florida Gulf Coast, I think. A shout out to Dusty May.
Heck yeah.
Nice.
And but he had a really good. He transferred up from the Gulf Coast, Florida Gulf Coast to Arkansas and got better. And he's like 5'9" and kind of an above average runner. Maybe center field, left field, possibly second base. But he's got surprising pop for his size and great bat to ball skills. He is kind of infamous for misplaying a line drive in the College World Series. Arkansas was winning, and it bounced off his head. And the 2-run scored and tied it, and LSU I think went on to win. And poor kid was crying in the dugout and all that stuff. But he could be fine with $1 million in the draft. Right,
good ball player.
Yeah, he's a very interesting target for me. Like if they were to go prep for the first 2 picks, or prep at first and then prep in the second round at 62, they could take a kid like Davalon and maybe for a little less money there in the middle.
So I have 2 more questions I want to ask that are more kind of broad. One is just straight up, let's say you have like 1-1 in this draft. Not even that, because that's not really fair. Just who is your favorite prospect in this draft? No, like, oh, the Tigers have to get him. I feel like this is an interesting draft because it's A, so young, but B, like Ethan Holiday is good. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but there's not like that bona fide transcendent, like, oh, this guy's been the 1-1 for 3 years and we've been waiting for him to like be draft eligible, whatever type of guy. If you could pick any prospect in this pool to join the Tigers organization, regardless of where they're going to get taken, who would it be?
Cade Odermiller.
Cool. Sure.
The pitcher out of Iowa. I like that kid a lot. There's a lot of kids I like, but the reason why I think Cade would be an ideal fit for the Tigers, even though he's like just over 6 foot. But the slider, the fastball, it changes slightly there. I think he's a guy under Tigers development could get better. I think that's a prime example of a guy who could really, really kind of put himself, because there's a couple guys in the pitcher wise that, because he increases velocity. And I know the Tigers don't seem to care about velocity. Hammond, for example, 92, 93, but Cade's velocity is there. And I think under the tutelage of what Detroit's been able to do as a pitching machine, I don't like if he's there in the 3rd or 4th round. I love the Tigers to draft him. He's one of my favorite. I was doing 10 or 11 pitchers, and he was my favorite of all of them.
Yeah, my favorite player is absolutely not going to get to the Tigers. It's JoJo Parker. He's a twin. He's got his twin brother in this draft, Jacob Parker. And Jacob Parker was actually considered the better prospect heading into the showcase circuit. And then super not now. Yeah. JoJo Parker does, like, if there's a superstar in this draft, I mean, it could be Ethan Holiday, obviously, and there's always somebody shows up who you don't expect. But if JoJo Parker turns into a superstar, I would not be surprised. He makes tons of contact, tons of hard contact. He's a plus athlete with a strong arm. He plays shortstop, left-handed hitter. I could see him, pulling like a Gunnar Henderson and just being a monster prospect. And yeah, he's going to go somewhere in the top 10. So that's a bummer. But
yeah. Mine is Eli Willits. So same. Yeah, it's certainly not going to fall. But the youngest player in the draft, I think, one of the youngest players in the draft, shortstop and a switch hitter. I will, with a really good bat to ball skills athlete. I absolutely adore him. And he will be nowhere near the Tigers.
Yeah. Same thing with like Billy Carlson is the guy. I mean, that guy, like, that's a guy who I'm like, that guy is going to be your third baseman for 10 plus years. And he's not, I don't think he's going to go past pick 15. I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, he's considered the best defensive shortstop in the entire draft, regardless of class. And Houston is like number 2. So yeah, if you get those guys, they're like every draft, there's talent and you got to find it. I mean, they're like Rod said, there are players I like later in the draft. There are always players I like later in the draft. And then we go through this draft process and then I forget about them when they don't get drafted by the Tigers. And either we see them like 3 years later, or you go, oh my God, what happened to that dude? And it's like, oh, he got in a moped accident and he's been gone forever. Yeah.
Well, so let's talk. The only other thing I really want to ask you guys is just in general, not even necessarily, if it is Tigers related, that's fine. But what is the biggest, I guess I'll use the word or the terminology, like draft storyline that you are keeping an eye out for, most excited for? I feel like, we talked before we hit record about Jack Bauer, and like he's getting a ton of publicity here. He throws 103 miles an hour at 17 years old, but like has no clue where the ball is going. So like, where is he going to end up? You mentioned, the Parker brothers, and that's obviously like a fun storyline. Jace, again, like at one point people thought he was going to be literally 1-1, like now he's falling. Obviously it could just be Ethan Holiday at the top. Like this is a really fun draft in terms of just like I feel like baseball's almost like to the point where it's like the draft drama is almost like getting to the mainstream point that like it's nowhere close to like the NBA and NFL or whatever, but like we're making strides. Like we're getting better for radio, if you will, and there's big dramatic storylines like that. So what are a couple or just whatever your favorite one is that you're kind of keeping an eye out for this year?
Yeah, I mean, I've got like half a dozen. I don't want to steal. If you have one, Raj, I don't want to steal it from you. But
no, you're good, man.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of fun stuff. You mentioned the twins. There's also Kyson and Malachi Witherspoon, who are both right-handed pitchers who are really interesting. Kyson might go in the top 10. Malachi might be a 4th rounder, even though they have basically the same stuff, but Malachi can't throw strikes. So I'm like, take that guy later and figure it out. Figure the strikes out. There's the Parker twins. You said I'm fascinated to see Seth Hernandez is a right-handed pitcher, high school pitcher out of Corona High School in California, the same school that Ethan Scheffelbein went to. Corona might have 4 kids go in the top of the first round. They might have 5 kids go in like the first 50 picks, which is absolutely insane. So that'll be fascinating. But Seth Hernandez is good enough to theoretically be the first ever right-handed high school pitcher to go first overall. Seems unlikely, especially with the Nationals firing their GM and manager recently.
Right.
But that's another story I'm looking at. And then the other one is if Ethan Holiday goes first overall, then that's 2 Holiday kids with the first overall pick, which has never happened. I think the highest we've seen before was Justin Upton going 1 and BJ Upton going 3 or 2. I don't remember, but they'd be the most highly drafted brothers of all time. So those are all sorts of storylines that don't really matter, but I think they're kind of fun.
Cool though.
I think for me, it's going to be what I don't. Here's the thing: I'm really mad that the Angels have the second pick. You know why? Because they don't deserve it. Angels don't deserve the second pick because
hey, man, whoever gets drafted by them, you're a big leaguer. Next week. You're a big leaguer, kid. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, I don't. I think the reason why the Angels could go multiple directions here, and I think that they're going. Do they stick with that? Let's get this guy up here as quickly as possible, or are they? Like there was rumors that they were considering Bryce Rayner last year, and they ended up going with, but thank you,
Right. I mean, I really like Christian Moore too. Yeah. I mean, he was a guy that is already playing Major League Baseball. Like that, they were just like, you know what, he went to college, he raked, like we can just kind of, crank him through the system as quick as possible.
The guy I really wanted, you guys all remember this, Cam Smith,
and that's looking pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and so in this case, I think the Angels. The reason why I think it's such an intriguing storyline here is I think the Angels have a chance to actually develop a prospect, but I don't think they're going to. I think Perry Minneson's just gonna be like, nah, let's just let it ride, and but I find that intriguing. Also, the Pirates too. The Pirates. Again, they lucked into getting the 6th pick. The Pirates don't deserve that pick either. I'm sorry. They screw the Pirates. The reason why I'm so bitter, I'm not necessarily bitter. It's just the reason why I'm envious of the Pirates is because they got Connor Griffin, they got Bubba Chandler. What are they gonna like? Are they gonna go with a college guy, or are they gonna go with somebody like the pitcher out of Oklahoma, Witherspoon? I could see them doing something like that and trying to do like, oh, we're going to replace Paul Skeens because, that's what we're going to do because we're going to trade him anyway. So
ridiculous. Yeah.
2 franchises that really have no respect for the game.
Fair enough. I still believe in Tamar Johnson, by the way. Not sure that's my proudest take, but I still believe.
I mean, that's the concern with when you draft somebody like Kason Cunningham, right? Is right. If you're a second baseman who your main tool is your hitting ability, if you don't hit, then there's not a whole lot there.
Right. What do you bring to the table if you don't? Yeah.
But anyway.
Okay. Well, like I said, I always appreciate having you guys on. I will have to do this more often and get you guys on here more often. We talk all the time, but not in front of a mic and camera. So I appreciate you guys as always. Go ahead and plug every single thing you guys do. Obviously the draft show, anything you guys have coming out.
So we have Scott's gonna be part of our show on Sunday starting at 6:00 at Tigers Minor League Report on YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter at Tigers ML Report. We'll be live streaming on there, and I think we'll be live streaming on Facebook if I don't hit by the copyright gods, if you will. And you can follow me on Twitter at Rajcast Baseball, and check out all our great articles at Tigers Minor League Report or TigersMLReport.com. We have a bunch of stuff that's coming out. We have Colin. Do yourself a favor. We were talking about this gentleman earlier. Colin,
man,
he wrote a really good piece on the 2024 class of 2024.
Yeah,
really good kid, smart kid. Ashley's been we're really lucky with the staff we have, and we're very fortunate. And they do some great work. And shout out to Jerry too. Jerry is is a wizard.
The dog, dude.
The dog, the ultimate dog. Like
I might not love another human being on this planet more than I love Jerry. I mean, just what an absolute legend.
Yeah, I think he might be an astronaut or something like that.
Yeah,
life or something. I don't know what he is.
NASA scientist.
Yes, or something. Like he just comes he comes to work in a shirt and tie. As soon as he gets home, he's just like on baseball. And so like shout out to Jerry on that too as well.
Yeah, I mean, Raj said everything. You can follow me on Twitter if you want at Chris Brown 0914. I don't, whatever.
He said if you want.
Yeah, I know. I assume anybody, like, obviously we don't have a total crossover here, but if you're into minor league baseball at all or prospects at all, then go to the Tigers minor league report.
And we cover
YouTube
the big
page.
Yeah,
go subscribe to our YouTube page. We put up videos of all these prospects down from rookie ball to AAA. And check out our Twitter. We put highlights up every night. I'm just about to grab Woody Hayden's first high A hit, which drove in 2 runs for the Whitecaps.
There you go. And we cover the Tigers too, so big league club as well.
Raj does that much better than I do.
There's nothing I love more than opening Twitter and seeing a Tigers minor league report like complex video. Just like some guy on a camcorder in center field, just seeing the first one I remember was Roberto Campos back in the day. Like when it was still, he's like 16 years old. We finally got a video of him hitting, and it's like, a Nokia flip phone video back in the, and some guy in the bushes in center field taking it or whatever. Those are just the absolute best, man. You guys do a great job.
The best compliment we got was when Erie won the championship, and I heard from some of the coaches who said that they will, after the game, as part of the routine, is watching our videos. And that to me is like that's the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, it was just like, my name, like, Dan Ricklebaum, the pitching coach here, he's like, well, and he's like, where's Chris? And the guy knows my name. Like, I was astonished. And so,
I remember a couple of years ago, maybe it was last year. I was at a Whitecaps game watching, I don't know, I remember who was pitching. Maybe was Joe rehabbing there at some point last year? I don't remember, but I was there, and a bunch of Tigers brass were sitting right in front of me, and I had just cut up the start, and I looked down, and a guy from the Tigers is looking at the video I had just made for Tigers Monday Report. I'm like, hey, all right, that's fun.
Well, that's good. That's that's doing something right. So, well, like I said, I always appreciate you guys hopping on. They do fantastic work over there. Be sure to support. As Chris said, I'm sure a lot of our if you made a Venn diagram of our following, a lot of those would overlap as is, but we will be on the live stream during the draft on Sunday night, and then Locked On Tigers will be back on Monday recapping this series against Cal Raleigh and the Seattle Mariners, who is having an unbelievable season. So appreciate you guys, and we will be back on Monday, rather. Well, we'll be on Sunday. This show will be Monday. You get it. Go Tigers.